God of War Ragnarok is a story about a broken man, poisoned by the evils he committed, who eventually found not only peace, but redemption by doing good. That is the story of Kratos, but there's also another story, how Kratos helped his dear friend find the same thing. This is the hidden story of the Berserker King and his 12 warriors. Our story begins midway through the game when Kratos, Freya, and Mimir are searching for the Norns, and along the way they find a magical sword hilt, seemingly by a stroke of destiny. This hilt, when inserted into an ancient gravestone, awakened a frozen evil that Mimir was very familiar with. These Berserkers are unique enemies and are meant to be the final challenge for Kratos after beating the game. They have a very specific look as these undead eldritch Viking warriors, but according to the God of War art book, they started out very differently. Character art shows a more ghostly, darker enemy type made mostly of smoke that would have been incredibly agile and hard to pin down, much like the Valkyries of the former game. This design was ultimately changed to a more skull-based, heavier, skeleton undead warrior motif, but the smoky, ghostly figures concepts were used again, but for a completely different enemy in the game. These Berserkers actually do have a basis in Norse mythology, but before we get to that, I think it's important to show how God of War Ragnarok tells this story and what these undead warriors mean to Mimir.
Good riddance, you feckless ball bag!
You knew this warrior.
Do me a favor, brother. You see any more of these ghostly berserker tossers, give them the same. You'll be doing the Nine Realms a favor.
Did these warriors wrong you at some point, Mimir? You're quite agitated, even for you.
No need to rehash ancient history if it's all the same to you.
Very well. Tell me more of this king.
He's not worth wasting my breath over. His berserker champions even less so. Trash. The lot of them.
Why wait until now to speak of them?
Before, there was nothing to be done. But finding that hilt changed things. They gather the fear.
For later! I am everywhere!
The nerve! Invoking Lyra after what they did.
Lyra? I've never heard of it.
It was a peaceful kingdom, full of artists and poets. But it fell to ruin long ago.
And these berserkers were responsible.
Them and their accursed King Hrolf. What little blood I have still boils at the thought.
Your former home, I assume.
Let's just take this victory and move on, eh?
There is no need to shoulder this burden on your own.
Admittedly, you're shouldering the brunt of the work here. Let me worry about the emotional burden.
As Mimir continues his journey of reflections, he mentions his home, or at least one of his homes, Lyra. It's a real city located in East Denmark and is believed to be the mythological location of many tales, including the saga of King Rolf and his berserkers. But for now, Mimir still has much more to learn.
This hilt. What is its connection to these spirits?
It's a symbol of their betrayal, their cruelty personified. The sooner we're done with it, the better.
If I can make peace with my blades.
I suppose you're right. If Skofnung rids the land of these bastards, I can stomach its presence a bit longer.
Honor my king!
The Alpha!
This kingdom, Lyra. You once lived there.
Before I shacked up with the Aesir, aye. Another of my spectacular failures.
In capturing these spirits, you seek redemption.
I just want to send these bloody monsters to hell where they belong. Wouldn't exactly call it redemption, but I know I'll feel better once it's over. Fleet Circa the Bold.
King Rolf will rise again!
Behind you! Look out!
This king you spoke of,
He's not really a king. Just called himself one because he killed the previous king.
someone you knew.
Aldis. A kind man. A trusting man.
He trusted this usurper, this Rolf.
No, Aldis trusted me. And, fool that I am, I trusted Hrolf.
So now you seek revenge. A dangerous path.
You're one to talk.
I am an authority on the subject. You would do well to listen. Once we have defeated these berserkers, what then?
We pay the king a visit and give him more of the same.
We have seen this before. Revenge will not bring you peace.
Is it revenge if justice is served?
That is a question you must answer for yourself. Hunting these berserkers, I am reminded of our search for the Valkyries 2 winters ago.
I can see the similarities, aye.
There is one difference. With the Valkyries, you lacked spite.
Brother, I appreciate the sentiment, but you don't know the full tale.
I know how it feels to be wronged, and how it feels to achieve vengeance. I would hope to spare you the disappointment.
Aye.
This was the last, was it not? Only the king remains.
Aye. And if you thought his berserkers were tough, well, I've been thinking about what you said, brother. Maybe it's time to let this go. Slurping up a dead man's soul with this old sword isn't gonna change the past.
It is good to hear you say that. But I plan to face him regardless.
What? After all your lecturing on vengeance and spite?
It is not wise to let a malevolent spirit wander Midgard. But I needed to know you wanted this for the right reasons.
Huh. Appreciate the sentiment, brother. King Hrolf's gravestone. It's reformed. Guess there's only one thing left to do.
My kingdom.
Thank you, brother. Still not sure if that was justice or vengeance.
The two are not always at odds.
What do you intend to do with Skofnung now?
I intend to use it.
No! Don't you understand the legacy that thing carries? Not to mention the souls of evil berserkers.
I will use it for good.
That won't erase its history.
No. But the story of this sword is still being written. Future generations will weigh its good deeds against the bad and decide for themselves.
You've come a long way from when I first met you, brother.
I have had good counsel since then, brother.
So with that, Kratos gains an incredible weapon that utilizes the 12 undead souls for good, and Mimir goes through a very similar transformation that Kratos does in the game. Transformation that changes the spirit of vengeance within both of them into something more like redemption, along with perhaps the most important thing. Kratos and Mimir strengthen their brotherhood. This is one of the only times in the game where Kratos calls Mimir his brother, and it really shows how far both of them have come since the previous game. We now know the hidden story of King Rolf and the Berserkers, but the mythological tale is a little different. In the saga of King Rolf, With events dating back to the 5th or 6th century, this story actually intercedes with the poem of Beowulf. It's a classic tale of incest and murder, but basically the king fought the evil King Aldiz with his great 12 Berserker warriors and was able to trick this evil king and kill him with a ploy of jewels and rubies before he himself was eventually betrayed by a sibling. In the game, the story is reversed. Aldiz is the one that Mimir was working for, and Rolf is the true evil, much like how the story depicts the traditional narratives of Thor and Odin and the Aesir. Along with that change, there is a lot of really interesting lore about each of the individual berserkers and the terribly evil things they've done in their past lives. I want to go over that now, and apologies in advance for butchering these very complex Icelandic names.
Ragni the Zealot!
One of King Hrolf's berserkers, Ragni would never back down from a challenge. Mimir tells me he spits after saying this, but refuses to elaborate further. A follower of the false King Hrolf, according to Mimir, he was known for his particular cruelty in battle. Harderfield's skill with a blade was precise, and he used this precision to extend the suffering of his victims. Instead of beheading them in one swift move, he would dismember, slow and deliberate, a vile practice. He will be forgotten. Perhaps in life this Höklungur the Bearded had intimidating facial hair. In death, I saw nothing of consequence. If that was where his strength lay, he should have ensured it would accompany his soul in the afterlife. I pity him. Hair is temporary, as are we all.
Berserker the Bold!
King Hrolf will rise again!
According to Mimir, Hitzvige was, in his life, a powerful necromancer, violating the natural order to summon the dead to his will. In death, it seems, this ability inverted, allowing him to summon living creatures as his minions. Only those corrupted by Seor are susceptible to this, but it was enough to prove dangerous. We are well rid of this berserker.
Gather the fear!
For later!
Mimir would not tell me the transgressions of this berserker. He informed me he is relieved the heinous bastard is gone for good. He continues to speak ill of this beguider for a few moments more, but I do not wish to write the rest of his words. I too am glad to see his demise. Unearing feels a fitting title as her aim was true. However, Mimir tells me she earned it during her days as an assassin. Her targets would meet their ends without fail, but not until after every ally around them had been killed first. A berserker of King Hrolf were defeated in the deserts of Alfheim. Known for her force, as Mimir puts it, during her life after she defeated an opponent, she would not stay her maces. Halti would continue her assault long after the body was beyond recognition. This Hrolf kept truly depraved company. Mimir tells me Hromundur the Cruel received her name for one particular battle, the last stand of Dolfdun, during which King Hrolf's opponents declared defeat. Hromundur, using only her magic, then performed a blood eagle on the surviving general. I am familiar with this method of execution, but have not yet heard of magic used to enact it. The prospect is vile and unnecessary. In life, Spipdagar was said to sharpen her axes on the bones of her enemies. Mimir has garnished the truth before in favor of a good story, but in this instance I cannot allow it. Bones will not sharpen weapons. If the dwarves were to hear this, I do not doubt they would mock it furiously. I am told Wotor was one of King Hrolf's favorite berserkers. Her early life as a traveling rhapsode, as she would be called in Greece, led to her ability to move swiftly but attack in full force with her destructive magic. People of many talents should be rightfully feared, but she will be feared no longer.
Bidvar the Fierce, Darol for the Troublesome.
I have been told this Bodvar had all the brains of a hammer. If this is true, it is a wonder why King Hrolf's company were able to hold the reputation Mimir claims they did. A good warrior must be as sound in mind as they are in body. Still, I knew many companies in Greece who applied strength and brutality over strategy. Brutality alone never won a war. We fought Strofel alongside Bodvar the Fierce in Straffelheim. Shortly after, Mimir spoke bitterly of her notoriety in subterfuge. By the cover of night, she would kill the families of powerful enemies rather than the rulers or generals. This incited swift surrender from some and brutal retaliation from others. Either outcome was enjoyable to her.
You can't have it.
Former owner of the Cursed Blade, Skofung, an unworthy man who declared himself king, Mimir spoke bitterly of how he and his berserkers laid waste to the kingdom of Lare. It is unlike Mimir to seek vengeance, but his cause is just. I have taken Hrolf's sword, once a symbol of betrayal, and used it to get rid of these realms of him and his followers. I hope this brings Mimir some peace. And with that, so ends the hidden story of how Mimir found redemption, but again, more importantly, how Kratos and Mimir finally became brothers. Next up, the story of Sigrun, the Valkyrie Queen, and what she did for the love of Mimir.